My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a Principal Program Manager in the OneDrive SharePoint team, which is a joint engineering effort. I'm also responsible of our open source and community engagement, so making sure that our customers and partners understand how to do extensibility in Microsoft 365 in general or in the SharePoint and OneDrive area. And obviously that includes Graph and everything else what we do in this side. Now, in SharePoint side of the house, we've been using our latest extensibility model, which is SharePoint Framework, for a while. And SharePoint Framework was released almost 3 years ago, and it has been widely successful in the cloud. And it's designed for a UX layer extensibility. So basically, if you want to modify and create a widget on a SharePoint, or want to create a widget in Microsoft Teams, or nowadays, if you want to create a widget or functionality or a solution, also in Office settings, you can actually take advantage of SharePoint Framework. Now, why on earth I would actually do that would be probably the first question if you're not familiar with SharePoint Framework. So let's actually start with that one quickly. So first of all, if you're not familiar what is a SharePoint Framework and how these things work, obviously I will show you some resources and a live demo in a second. But the beauty of SharePoint Framework is that we take care of the hosting. So number one challenge what Office add-ins developers kept on saying, and enterprise developers who were planning to do an enterprise extensibility for their customers, was saying that, well, it always gets complicated because somebody needs to host my extensibility, my web application. I need to create an Azure application. And when I go and request an Azure application for my customer, enterprise customer, it takes ages to get that. And all of those permissions and everything else, it's really, really difficult. With SharePoint Framework and Office add-ins development, all of this is automatic. You don't actually have to worry about hosting because everything is hosted for you automatically. So your code is being hosted by us, which is a great thing because you will save money. Now, the second really good thing is that authentication. So authentication with SharePoint Framework and Office add-ins, it just works. You don't need to do anything related on your code. The authentication just works automatically. So there's a single sign-on, you're authenticated with Microsoft 365 or Office 365 identity, and you are good to go. Now, the code maintenance is a good thing as well. So the same code can work across SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, and Office. Exactly the same code. You don't have to do any changes within your code, except unless you want to access something service or application specific, for example, using the Office JavaScript SDK, then you obviously use the Office JavaScript SDK, which is given to you easily within the code as well. And I'll show you that one in a second as well. But you can basically, the baseline component and baseline implementation and solution is exactly the same. So you can reuse the same piece of code, which is super, super important. The skills reuse, super important thing. You don't actually have to learn anything specific if you're developing anything for these three different applications. So it's the same tool set, it's the same human generator, it's the same APIs, it's the same TypeScript version, it's the same extensibility model, which we're taking advantage. So you can actually build on top of your existing skill set. The deployment is super easy. You basically have automatic hosting, and you can there's one way of deploying Office settings, Microsoft Teams tabs, or SharePoint Framework web parts as well. Now, we're also looking into having a more consistent and, let's say, more wider Microsoft 365 developer story. And this is something which is coming slightly later. So sooner or later, you don't actually use SharePoint Framework to create Office add-ins. You use Microsoft 365 Framework or whatever it will be called. Even in Ignite, we kind of said, we didn't say out loud what it will be called because it's a marketing decision, but there will be a one unified Microsoft 365, is it a component or an application platform, where you can actually then say that, hey, I want to have a component. And with that component, you can define where it's going to be hosted. It's going to be hosted in Office as an Office add-ins, or as a Microsoft Teams tab, or as a SharePoint Framework web part. The governance, so you can have a one centralized management of the governance as well. So managing all of your applications in a single location. This comes with a unified app catalog, which is in development and not yet available. And then cross-platform support in the Office using the same SharePoint Framework web part or your Office add-ins across the Windows, Excel, PowerPoint, and Office across all of the different platforms as well. Again, same piece of code, which is a super, super important thing. So those three things are coming. They're not yet available. Technically, the whole implementing Office add-ins using SharePoint Framework is in preview. So we released it actually to preview yesterday. So this is super, super new stuff for you to take advantage. We did show it in Ignite already, so you might have actually seen some of the videos. Now, The longer-term vision, what we want to do with Microsoft 365 platform is really to come up with a one unified way of doing extensibility. Obviously, it's a complex platform, and obviously behind the scenes we're using Microsoft Graph APIs because that gives you the contextual, personalized access to the relevant information. And then you can use the specific APIs and SDKs for the service what you're using. But the whole idea of this longer-term vision is to have a one yo at Microsoft 365 where you can actually then create your application or your widget or a solution, which then you can define where it's going to be hosted, when it's going to be surfaced. So you don't actually, again, need to have specific knowledge of a specific application. And sure, if you're implementing an Excel-based extensibility, you will take advantage of Excel JavaScript SDK, and it has its own specific things to make happen. But the actual widget, the implementation of the style, is the same across the Microsoft 365. And that's the vision where we're heading gradually. This will take a while still to get there, but this was already presented in the Ignite 2019 in November in Orlando a few months ago. But that gives you a scene where we are heading. Now, like I said, yesterday we released the preview version of Office add-ins built with SharePoint Framework. And even that sounds really weird, by the way, creating Office add-ins using SharePoint Framework. Why would you use SharePoint Framework to create Office add-ins? Well, that's precisely the reason why we are renaming all of this stuff as a unified platform sooner or later. But for now, what we're actually doing is that we are building a SharePoint Framework web part during the preview timeframe. We have a SharePoint Framework web part together with Office Context, and we have the Office manifest. And we're using site loading during the preview timeframe, and that actually is the Outlook Web Access application, so Outlook Web Access add-in, which you can then take advantage within your Outlook Web Access. This is the preview timeframe, and we're looking into extending this then to cross all of the other applications as well. So Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and all of that work is being done already or being actively worked on. So let's have a look on this one in practice. So what does it actually mean that you build using a one specific tooling and you target either web part or a SharePoint or a Teams or an Office add-ins? And what does it mean that I can access the Office JavaScript SDK within my code? Let me jump first on the commander. So let's actually have a look on how do we create this. So if you are familiar with SharePoint Framework, then you might be super familiar with what I'm doing here, but let's actually have a look on what we're doing. So first of all, we are using the SharePoint Framework Yeoman generator. Like I said, for now, sooner or later, there's going to be Microsoft 365 Yeoman generator, which you use for generating the UX layer for extensibility. And because this is a preview capability, we're going to do, before I go to the command line, let me recap slightly. You can find the documentation in AKMS SPFx is actually the URL. AKMS SPFx is the easiest way to find the relevant documentation. And that's a really easy thing to remember as well, SPFx meaning SharePoint Framework. From here, I can search for Office add-in or Office, and we can actually find the building Office add-ins using SharePoint Framework. And that's basically then the tutorial, which we kind of take advantage in this quick demo as well. So we're going to use the Yeoman generator, and we're going to use the +beta command behind it. So let me actually get back on the command line and do the +beta. And I'll do skip install here, which basically means that I'm not going to run the the npm install, which will save some time for showing you what we actually get for executing the Yeoman generator. So our Yeoman generator in the SharePoint Framework is first going to ask what's the solution name. So Outlook demo is fine. We're going to target SharePoint Online for now. Like I said, for now, this is quite SharePoint specific questions, but all of this is going to be changed in the future. Use a current folder. Do we want to allow tenant admin to deploy stuff immediately across the tenant? Yes. Do we want to have a specific permissions? No. We're going to target a web part for now, and we're going to call it Outlook demo. And description is fine. Do we want to use React Knockout? Well, for now, let's not use any JavaScript framework. And there we go. The Yeoman generator has created us the solution without Node modules folder. So quickly having a look on what actually happens here is that we give you a web part solution and web part baseline solution. And we also give you, which is basically ready to go as a starting point. And we also give you a manifest file, which is ready to go to get hosted into Outlook Web Access. So you can easily get started on testing things because everything what you need is available in here. So I'm not going to actually package this one. I'm going to close this one. I'm going to use another solution which I created earlier, because I wanted to save some time for not actually installing the node modules. And that's the one, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that is the one. So this is a solution which I created earlier, where we actually have an access already to the Office context. And accessing the Office context is nothing more than in the web part or in the panel implementation. I do this.context.sdks. And from here, again, depending where to a panel or a widget or an application, whatever we want to call this in the future, if it's actually hosted in Office, that Office context is then available. And from the Office context, I can actually access something like mailbox and mails and messages and all of that, whatever is the API what you need to access on. Now, I can then use this context to figure out, am I actually in Office or am I in SharePoint? So I can use exactly the same piece of code as an Office add-in or as a SharePoint framework or as a Teams tab as well, if you prefer to do that. So in this case, we're just going to basically output a message depending on the fact that are we in SharePoint or are we in Office. So let's quickly actually walk this through, because this is super cool, because all of the hosting, deployment, everything else is super streamlined for you. So let me actually do gulp package. And I'm going to do gulp package ship, which basically means that I'm packaging my TypeScript solution as an SPFx or ready to be packaged as an SPFx file. If you're familiar with SharePoint Framework, that might be useful. So I'm going to do gulp bundle, that's the ship, which is going to actually prep the package and prep the TypeScript to a JavaScript format. And there we go. And then it's ready to get actually packaged. And the beauty of the SharePoint Framework solution model really is the fact that we can actually package our solution as an individual solution file, which actually contains all of the assets, images, JavaScript files, all of the other assets as well. And that's actually being done by using, and the rules of that is being controlled by the package solution JSON file. You can even ask Microsoft Graph permissions. So nobody needs to go to Azure AD and create an application and grant permissions and go through all of that burden in the enterprise development process to get those permission granted. You don't actually need to go to Azure AD at all. You just request the permissions, and the tenant administrator of the Office tenant can grant the permissions in this for your application. Quite streamlined experience. Now, let me actually do gulp package solution as well. So I'm going to actually package the solution. It's not going to take too long that we actually get stuff created. And let me actually open up that solution. So here's my solution. We can actually see I'm located in Finland. It's 6:31 right now in the Finnish time frame. So let me actually go to my tenant. How are we going to install this to my tenant? Right now, it is still using the SharePoint app catalog. Again, we're working on a unified app catalog experience in a tenant level. That's coming sooner or later this year as well. And I'm installing the solution to my tenant, and it's going to actually ask some permissions. It's going to ask some do some nodes related to Minecraft permissions, which the solution is requesting to get permissions as well. I'm not actually using those in the sample, so I don't need to grant those the permissions as such. But now, there we go. Our solution is being hosted. What's really cool about this model, again, if you're not familiar with SharePoint Framework, is the fact that this file, this SPFx file, actually contains all of the assets. It contains all of the JavaScript files, it contains all of the manifest files and all of those stuff. So everything is automatic. I can send that file to any of my customers and say, install that to your tenant, and you're good to go. Super easy, super convenient experience as well. Now, we have the solution available. Now we need to actually take that available in the Outlook Web Access. So let me actually go to one email in here. Let me go to my add-ins functionality. And let me actually get the path to the folder. Let me actually open up a folder one more time. So I actually get the manifest location. That's my manifest location for this file, which we, by the way, create automatically for you as well. So you don't have to worry about how do I create the manifest. We create it for you with the default settings. So now if I go to the Outlook settings in my tenant, my applications, add from file, I can upload my application manifest file, install that as using the site loading during the preview time frame, and then means that I can actually start my application, which is actually automatically hosted from the SharePoint and super easy, super convenient way of implementing add-ins. Oh, and well, that worked really well. And then I did a mistake. I'm not going to spend too much time on investigating. We are in a preview time frame. I will need to double check what did I actually do wrong, and I know what I did wrong. So I actually used the wrong manifest file. Let me actually fix that, so I will prove you that the things are working properly. So let's do that one more time. It's not going to take too long. I don't have too much time on my belt anymore because I promised to do stuff in 15 minutes. There we go. Let's close. That wasn't necessary, but let's get the application manifest file one more time in. And uploading from a file. And I uploaded the wrong file. That was the problem. Let's install that. There we go. And let's get my application available. And now it's getting hosted, and there we go. Welcome to Office, extending Office with custom business extensibility. There's the context. I'm accessing the email address where I'm actually there. You can do some level of a configuration as well, and everything will be available for you. Again, super convenient, automatically hosted. You can take advantage of things. You can get access on the Office.js, so the JavaScript SDK from the implementation really easily as well. But I think that's pretty much from my side. Like I said, we do have a tutorial. We are more than willing to get your feedback on this one. There's multiple people in the Office add-ins engineering who would be highly interested in getting your feedback on this one as well, because this definitely is not a SharePoint specific thing. This is an Outlook and Office add-ins engineering investments mainly. And for SharePoint specific stuff, we do have an issue list in the SP DevDocs issues, where we would love to have your input. So github.com SharePoint SP DevDocs issues, where we would love to have your feedback, your input, your suggestions related on things which you might be finding from the solution. But that's it from my side for now. So hopefully you find that interesting and it's a useful thing for you as well. Thank you. Maybe before we move to Kim, just to pinpoint the fact, this is not going to replace the SaaS level implementations of add-ins. This is definitely an add-on tool for your tool belt. So basically designed for enterprise developers and let's say system integrators who implement enterprise extensibility for Outlook and Office as well. So you easily can then get deployed your stuff, but there's obviously still will be applications which are web-hosted applications, like let's say GitHub or let's say Trello. And if you want to extend any of those ISV solutions within your Office add-ins or in your Outlook, the model still remains exactly the same as in the past. But I think that's it for now. Please give us feedback and let's jump back on Kim's screen.
Great, thanks, Vesa. I think we had a question or two maybe posted to the chat, so if you can keep an eye on the chat there, Vesa.
I will follow up on those. Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
Really cool to see this integration with the SharePoint Framework and Office add-ins. Like Vesa said, just yet another way that you can build Office add-ins in addition to the ways you've already been able to build them previously. Also really cool to see the direction that things are heading in with the M365 developer experience and this greater effort on our part to make developing across the various Microsoft workloads a seamless experience versus feeling like everything is a little bit different. So really cool to see where things are headed there.